Welcome to episode 20 of the B Movie Club. This week we'll be discussing the 1990 thriller comedy Tremors, starring Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, Michael Gross, Reba McEntire. The list goes on and on. You may notice sometimes that my my background changes from time to time. I'll tell you what, I'm like a gorilla out here. I film wherever there's a spot, wherever there's time. I hope you guys appreciate all that I do for you. Sometimes I'm at home, sometimes I'm on the road, sometimes I'm at school, sometimes I'm in some alley somewhere. Who knows where we'll film it from week to week. So there you go. It adds a little bit of mood, of setting, the whole deal. So good times. Anyway, with the B Movie Club, as you guys know, what we do is we try to pick movies from the last 20 or 30 years that we enjoyed back then, but maybe we haven't gotten a lot of play since then. People haven't been talking about lately, but that were good movies nonetheless. We don't pick a lot of major league blockbusters that are on the USA Network every night, except maybe USA Up All Night. Those are more our movie quality there. If they're on HBO all the time, we're probably not picking them. Nothing too heavy, nothing too dramatic. Just fun is typically what we're going for. So you can send me your movie suggestions at KD9575 on Twitter. You can leave your suggestions on our channel, KD9575 on YouTube. You can also reach me on Facebook. People who've subscribed to the B Movie Club through YouTube, I give them special preference, obviously. And this week, Tremors was actually suggested to me several weeks ago by Tim. He actually sent me a couple suggestions. And I'll tell you what, Tremors, I love Tremors. Tremors is totally an underrated classic. People who haven't seen it think it's this horror, this horrible, violent thing. And, I mean, it's got horror elements to it. It is about giant sandworms that pull people into the ground and eat them. But it's much, I don't know, the theme of it all is a lot lighter than that. I mean, the two main characters are Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward, who are like these handymen named Val and Earl, who they live in this town called Perfection, Nevada, but for some reason they all have these crazy deep South accents. I mean, these are the most inappropriate accents since Raising Arizona. If you've seen those crazy accents, it's like, where do these people think they are? Anyway, and they're in the desert. It's like this kind of down on its luck town in the middle of the desert. And what happens is people start disappearing from this town, and because there's only like 14 people who live there, people notice that they're not there anymore. At one point, they find one of the old residents up in like a power line, hanging from, not from the lines themselves, they would have been electrocuted, but just hanging from the tower essentially. And they can't understand why he'd be up there because he died of like dehydration, so he was up there for days. Later, they find out it's like these worms, these giant creatures under the ground that are grabbing people. And they can detect you by vibration. So if you're walking around, they know you're there and they just grab you. So they have to figure out how to get out of the valley and go get help from the nearby towns because there isn't like a sheriff in town. There isn't like National Guard or anything like that. So you've got Val and Earl, and you've got Michael Gross from Family Ties in one of his first movie things that I'd ever seen him in. He plays this crazy survivalist with all these guns and things like that. It's funny seeing him go from being on Family Ties, where he's kind of the left wing guy who is sensitive and works for public television to, this survivalist nut job who's all about his guns and waiting for World War III. So it's kind of an interesting contrast. So I'm not going to tell you all the secrets of the movie, because there are some twists and turns, let me tell you. But what I can tell you is the actual design for the creatures went through a lot of different incarnations. The people who behind the scenes actually called the worms graboids. Yeah, very very technical term, I'm sure. Their concern is they didn't want these things to look like the sandworms from like Dune, if you've ever seen that, because they are kind of similar creatures. They wanted to be very distinct from those guys, and they went through a lot of different designs and a lot of different shapes. At one point, they had to start all over because it was a little too inappropriate. They felt the shape. The story was written by the same guys who brought you those classic gems such as Short Circuit and Short Circuit 2. So there you go. You have that to look forward to. Reba McEntire, this was her first movie ever, and she does a good job. She's fun as the survivalist wife. And again, she's also gun-toting and kind of crazy. They're making like pipe bombs to throw at the worms. What else can I tell you? They actually made 3 sequels to this movie, and Michael Gross is in all of them. One of them was also, Tremors 2 was in theaters, but the other 2 were straight to video. Sad. Kevin Bacon, however, does not appear in the other 3 sequels. He actually was nominated for a Golden Globe for his performance in Tremors. So all you people who think this is just a horror movie, oh no. It is far better than that, let me tell you. It got an 88% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. So what can I mean, seriously. This is a forgotten classic if there ever was one. And Kevin Bacon had actually been in other horror movies before. I mean, little do you know, he was in Friday the 13th, the original one, before he was particularly famous. And of course, his comedy chops, he was in Animal House even before that. So Kevin Bacon, I mean, he is everywhere. He is all things. So, and of course his name is Kevin. So on the message board, we were talking about how, we love Kevin Bacon, extra crispy. I don't know what that means, but it sounds funny. Next week, we will be doing Time Bandits, that classic movie directed by Terry Gilliam, starring a lot of the Monty Python people and a lot of little people. So there you go, because it's important that little people control the map that controls time. I'm not sure how it all works. We'll be talking about that. That is streaming instantly on Netflix. Tremors was not streaming instantly this last week. It's a bummer. I had to get it through Netflix the old-fashioned way. But you know what? The disc they send you has a lot of cool stuff on it. It has a behind-the-scenes featurette where they talk about all the ins and the outs, about how Michael Gross literally filmed his last episode of Family Ties, and then the next day was shooting Tremors. So there you go. Again, please send me any of your suggestions for future movies. Send me any comments you have about the movies, any questions you have about the movies. What are your favorite scenes? Things like that. Favorite quotes. Midweek, as usual, I will put up on Facebook and on Twitter a trailer for whatever movie we're doing. So this week you'll find a trailer for Time Bandits. Just keep those ideas coming. As you know, I end every episode with my favorite quote from the movie. And there were a couple here, but totally out of context. My favorite quote from Tremors was, "I guess you picked the wrong rec room to break into, didn't you, you bastards?"